writing. So Birgit today, as well as Philip, are going to go over that a little bit more specifically. But we do want to give an intro for everyone out there, just so you know a little bit about Norwich. But before we go ahead with that, we'll let everyone introduce themselves. My name is Alana Stuart. I'm the regional manager for UEA. I am based stateside in Michigan, and I've worked with UEA for almost 10 years now. But I basically help usher all students through undergraduate, postgraduate, from their initial starting point all the way up till they get onto campus. And now we'll swap to Birgit to get her intro.
Thanks, Lana. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Birgit Breidenbach. I'm a lecturer in literature and philosophy at UEA, and I'm also the admissions director for literature, drama, and creative writing, meaning that part of my job is to liaise with prospective applicants and advise on their applications and support them in the process. Yes, I'm handing over to Philip.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Philip Langeskov. I'm an Associate Professor of Creative Writing, and I'm currently Head of Creative Writing at UEA, which means I have kind of overall oversight of all our programs from undergraduate through to PhD.
Perfect. Thanks so much, you two. So our general information, and Birgit will share a little bit more about Norwich, England, as she is based there. But I will say that I love the city, and it is very enchanting, especially for us Americans. Very much unlike anything we have here in the States. So University of East Anglia as a university was founded in 1963. There were a bunch of universities that were founded around this time, basically to expand education across England, and we are one of those. Overall, we have about 17,700 students, of which 13% are international, hailing from all different parts of the world. So you students get a truly international experience when they do come to us, and if you are coming over yourself, you will get that as well. We are ranked in the UK top 30. So I always like to say, especially in the US, we don't always pay attention to rankings as much, but that does establish us as a decent university for you to be very much considering. Because even though we're relatively young in the whole scheme of universities, we have done well at establishing ourselves, and do have professors who are doing top tier research who are teaching all of our students. So the idea of a TA doesn't really exist in the UK. It really is those professors that are in their fields and doing that research that you will learn from. We have a wide variety of programs at UEA. So you are hearing from creative writing today, which is one of our top programs. But that's not to say, obviously, that we don't have other programs for consideration, because we pretty much are comprehensive. So other things we're well known for, or better ranked in, are environmental science, business, history, biology, chemistry, economics, international relations, as well as global development. So really a good cross-section of topics there. Really, I don't think you can go too wrong on anything that you're studying at the university, again, because you have all of that top-tier research that's happening. If you're curious about global development, as I don't feel as though we have that in the US as much, that's students going into developing nations and working on different aspects of that development, whether it be water security or gender equity. It's a very interdisciplinary program that can be tailored to what students want. So again, not something we hear about too much in the US, but very much something that is very renowned in the UK, especially at UEA. For more of the general info to kind of wrap this up, for those who are not successful with the Marshall scholarship process, as we do know, it is very competitive for the program. It's very prestigious. We do have scholarships, and FAFSA loans are available for students. It is only the loan portion that can go across, and there are changes to those due to the governmental policies that are adjusting. But at the same time, we do have the ability to do those, as well as some third-party lenders that we work with. So you can help fund your studies that way. Requirements are typically a 3.0 GPA in your undergraduate. Some courses will require a aligned course to what you want to study. Some will not, so you just have to look at those requirements. And that's why I'm here to kind of help you demystify if you do have any questions. And then our costs. So looking at that, again, if you're not successful with the Marshall Scholarship or even just in general to kind of have this information, our tuition fees start at about 35,000 US dollars with the exchange rate at the moment. And then our accommodation on campus. So that would be what you're familiar with as dorms, which are open to postgraduate students. We do have postgraduate only options, but those start at about 6,400 US dollars again at the moment with that. And there are different living arrangements too. You would get your own room, so you wouldn't have to worry about sharing as a postgraduate student, or at least in most cases, you would get your own room. I think only about 5% of our accommodation options are shared. So a lot of students do choose to live on campus, but a lot choose to live off too, because you would be based in our beautiful city of Norwich, which Birgit is going to talk about a little bit now.
Thanks, Alana. Okay, hopefully you should see lovely pictures of Norwich on the slides here. If you can't, please give me a shout. But yes, to give you a little introduction to where we are based. So we are based in a beautiful city called Norwich, and I'm aware there is a Norwich in the US as well. But ours we pronounce Norwich, and it's located in the east of England, in a region called Norfolk. It's about 2 hours out of London. Really beautiful location, very much in nature, very scenic. And Norwich itself is a really stunning historical city. As you can see from the images, hopefully, we've got lovely historical buildings, lots of medieval heritage. In the middle there, you can see our medieval castle. And then on the right side, our cathedral. So you can probably picture it in your minds, cobblestone streets, the whole lot. It's a really, really wonderful place. And don't just take our word for it. Norwich was recently named the best place to live in the UK by the Sunday Times. So do take their word for it. It really is quite a special place, and it's a special place for people who love literature and for writers. It truly is. It's known as a very creative place. For a smaller city, it's got a lot going creatively, both in literature, music, visual arts, you name it. But literature really has a very special place in the heritage. So Norwich was named England's first UNESCO City of Literature, which is quite special. It wasn't London, it wasn't Stratford-upon-Avon, it was Norwich. And that is due to a really amazing heritage in literature and writing that the city has. And UEA is a really, really big part of that heritage, because, as Philip will explain in a moment, we have a very special creative writing heritage. So yes, Norwich, also known as the city of stories, truly a good place to be for an aspiring writer. And with that, I'll hand over to Philip, who will home in a lot more now on the whole creative writing side of things. So over to you, Philip.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just quickly interrupt? Unfortunately, sorry. Unfortunately, I fear other people are still stuck on slide 1 on
Oh
the
no!
presentation.
Oh, sorry about that. So I was trying to
Well-
take it forward in my view, but maybe that just made it move for me. Philip, do you want to have a go and see if you can move it?
Is that
I've
moving?
also noticed that I moved my own screen
Oh.
with the slides down below.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's mysterious.
But when I click it forward now, is it moving for you, Michael?
It's moving now. Yes, yeah. So this is slide 3 now that we can see.
Okay.
Okay.
And is slide 3 all you can see, or can you see
Yep.
other things? Slides, you can just see slide 3.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Same here, yes.
I'll just show you the other slides that we've just talked through.
Thank you.
With
Sorry
some
about
beautiful
that,
pictures.
everybody.
That picture is the UEA Lake on campus, just so you know. And these are pictures of Norwich, medieval streets, a castle, a cathedral. And then this is where I come in. So as mentioned, I'm Philip Langeskov. I'm head of creative writing here at UEA. As well as being head of creative writing, I'm also a former student of UEA. I did the prose fiction MA in 2008, after which I did a PhD here in creative and critical writing. So one way or another, I've been connected with UEA for quite a long time. And in the next 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to talk you through a little bit about what makes UEA a special place to study creative writing, because I believe it is one of the most significant centers for creative writing study in the world. And say a little bit about the programs that we offer and see if these are the kind of things that might be interesting to you as you make your decisions about where you're going to go on to study. Before I talk about the university, I want to talk a little bit about writing itself, because I think writing is a really significant art form. And at UEA, we believe fundamentally that writing is one of the most significant and serious of human activities. And I say the word human advisedly. We think it's central to the way we understand each other and the world in which we live. In my case, I've been thinking about writing for a very long time. And if I were to boil some of my thinking down to an essence, it might receive a chime in the three quotations that are on the screen now. So the first one is from Susan Sontag, who says, "A writer, I think, is someone who pays attention to the world. It's all about paying attention. Attention is vitality. It connects you with others. It makes you eager." And it seems to me that the way in which writers attend to the world is significant, because writing, whether we write literary realism, fantasy, speculative fiction, horror, Gothic, whatever it is that we're writing, whether we're writing poetry, whether we're writing scripts, it has to come out of the world in which we live. It has to come out of the world that we attend to. And that idea of attending to the world is kind of central to the way we think about writing at UEA. And alongside that, the next quotation is from Zadie Smith, one of my favorite quotations. "For writers have only one duty, as I see it, the duty to express accurately their way of being in the world." And this, I think, brings in very importantly the idea of our own individual positionality as people in the world who have stories to tell that come from within us. And one of the things that we try to do at UEA, whatever kind of writer you are, whatever form you're working in, is help you to understand what the story is that you are trying to say and how you can say it faithfully to your own position in the world, so that you're writing something that is original, that comes from you, and that cannot come from another person. And then finally, perhaps my favorite quotation about writing of all time, when I read this a couple of years ago in the Paris Review, kind of blew my mind. Nicholson Baker said, the question any novel is really trying to answer is life worth living? Now, when Baker says novel, I think he's also saying poem, script, nonfiction, memoir, all of those things, I think. And I think what Baker is talking about points to that kind of significance about writing. Writing is not just a hobby. Writing is a way of understanding the world. Writing is a way of understanding what it is about the world that makes life worth living. So those little bits of philosophy in place, I'm going to talk you through a little bit about UEA, about what we do, and about what we offer. So UEA was founded in 1970 by two novelists who were also academics at UEA, Malcolm Bradbury and Angus Wilson. They were both very closely invested in the writing culture of the UK, but they were also very interested in the writing culture in the United States, particularly the creative writing programs, particularly the creative writing program at Iowa. And they wanted to bring that sense of serious literary attention to the practice and craft of writing to the UK. And sure enough, in 1970, the first MA in creative writing in the UK began at UEA. It's one of the earliest programs of its kind anywhere in the world. It plays a big role in establishing creative writing as an academic discipline. Both Bradbury and Angus Wilson, and also their inheritors of the tradition today, believe that writing and critical reflection take place as a kind of joint venture. So even today, creative writing sits within the School of Literature, Drama, and Creative Writing. So we're intimately engaged not only with the practice of writing, but the practice of thinking about writing. And we also, along with a number of universities in the States, help to develop the now standard workshop model, which is used and is central to the teaching of creative writing wherever you go. Now, why does this history matter? Well, for one thing, we are a program with a global influence that has stretched over more than 50 years now, a tradition that has come to shape contemporary literary culture. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the writers who studied with us in the past and what they have gone on to do. And we have at the center, as I mentioned in the previous slide, this balance of creative practice and critical thinking. So we're thinking as writers, but we're thinking as readers too. And that combination between writerly thinking and readerly thinking is central to what we think about when we're trying to engage in creative practice. And that reputation that we've built over the last 50 plus years is built on writers and writing itself, both staff who have gone on to great acclaim and students who have also gone on to great acclaim. Staff over the years that we've had include Rose Tremaine, Angela Carter, W.G. Sabal, George Surtees, and today we have writers like Naomi Wood and Tom Benn, who was recently named the Sunday Times Young Writer of the Year. So we're quite happy to agree with the Daily Telegraph, who said in a recent article that it is hard to think of another institution that has had a greater influence on what we read and what we write. So the origin story, like a lot of origin stories, the origin story of UEA is shrouded a little bit in kind of folklore and myth. But the story roughly goes like this. In 1970, the man on the left is Malcolm Bradbury, who I talked about a minute ago. He's a very famous, as well as being a famous novelist, he was also a very famous pipe smoker. I think he won Pipe Smoker of the Year in the UK several times. And in 1970, the program began, and the man on the right, with a particularly fetching knitted vest, was the first, and in that year only, student, so the story goes. Now, some of you may already recognize who that student is, but at the time he was not as well known as he is today. In the course of time, the quotation on the right is from that student. And he said, I probably saw him, Malcolm Bradbury, fewer than 3 or 4 times over a year, once or twice in a pub briefly for half a pint. And the story goes that they used to meet in the snug bar of the Maid's Head Hotel in Norwich, and they would talk about this student's writing. The Maid's Head still exists, as does the snug bar, but we tend not to do our supervisions there anymore. The writer in question, as some of you may be able to guess, is in fact now better known as Sir Ian McEwan, Booker Prize winning novelist of Atonement, Amsterdam, all kinds of novels that have been made into Hollywood films that have won Oscars. He's one of the most significant writers in the world over the last 30 or 40 years. And he was the very first student to come to UEA. So from 1970, when we had 1 student, we move forward in time to 2026, when we have a whole suite of programs and 2 undergraduate programs, BA English Literature with Creative Writing, BA Creative Writing and English Literature, a PhD program. We have a lot of research students working in creative and critical writing. It's a large community of research students. Then on the right-hand side of the screen, we have our MA programs, which are probably the programs that you're most interested in. We have MA Prose Fiction, MA Poetry, MA Script Writing, and MA Creative Writing. I'll talk about those in a bit more detail in a minute. We also have MA Crime Fiction, but that's a 2-year part-time low residency program, which I don't think falls within the bounds of what Marshall can support. So we've gone from having 1 student in 1970 to a situation in which we have upwards at any one time of 300 practicing writers on campus as part of our community. And as far as we are concerned, that makes us one of the largest communities of practicing writers in the world. So it makes for a really nourishing environment for people who want to write, because you will be surrounded by writers of all kinds working across form and across genre, both staff and students. And we think that makes for a very vibrant campus lifestyle, which I'll talk about in a little more detail in a minute. So I mentioned earlier that writers from UEA have gone on to considerable acclaim. The writers on this slide are just 6 of those writers. There are many more I could have chosen, but these are a really good representation of the sort of spread of writing that we have produced over the last 50 years. I'll take you around from the bottom left, which is the Irish novelist Anne Enright, who won the Booker Prize, as you can see, in 2007 for a novel called The Gathering. She's probably one of the most significant writers in contemporary European fiction. Just above her is Mona Archie, who's a poet and a novelist. She won the prestigious Forward Prize for her debut collection, Small Hands. In the middle of the top row is Tash Orr, who's a wonderful international writer, acclaimed novelist. His books are really fascinating explorations of globalization, migration, and identity, and Southeast Asian history. He's a wonderful writer, and he's a regular visitor to UEA to come and talk about his life. On the right is a writer that you may not recognize because her work tends to take place off screen. She is a screenwriter. She was the screenwriter of a film called The Favourite, which came out a few years ago and won several Oscars. She didn't win the best Oscar for best original screenplay, but she did win the BAFTA for best original screenplay, and she was shortlisted both nominated for the Oscar and for the Golden Globe. And then bottom right of the bottom row is Ayobami Adebayo, a Nigerian novelist who represents a kind of new generation of globally significant transmigrational writers who write to a very wide transnational audience. And then finally, in the middle, probably the most famous creative writing student of all time, I'd say. He's now known as Sakazuo Ishiguro. He won the Booker Prize in 1989 for The Remains of the Day. And in 2017, he became the first and still only graduate of a creative writing program to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. There's a quotation from him on the right-hand side about the time he spent in Norwich. Here I was faced with an unusual amount of quiet and solitude in which to transform myself into a writer. And indeed, the novel that he was working on while he was here at UEA became, when it was published, his first novel, A Pale View of Hills, a film of which has just been released. So there are many more writers that I could have chosen, and we continue to produce writers who go on to publish. Just last week here in Norwich, there was a launch party for a novel called The Leveret by a writer called Anna Goldreich, who did our undergraduate program and then progressed onto our MA Prose Fiction program. And that novel has just come out and is receiving rave reviews. So we continue to produce writers who go into the world. So if you're going to come here, what's it going to look like for you? On this slide, I'm going to talk you through our core MA programs. These are what we might call our form-based programs. We have MA Prose Fiction, MA Poetry, MA Script Writing, and MA Creative Nonfiction. Now, if you know that you're a particular type of writer, for instance, a novelist, for instance, a poet, for instance, a scriptwriter, for instance, a memoirist, and you're committed to that pathway, then these are probably the programs for you. They are probably, we would say, explicitly literary in their focus, with an emphasis on preparing writers for publication or performance, depending on the form in which you're operating. In principle, they work on the same kind of model. They have slightly different versions of that model, but the teaching centers around workshops, which are weekly discussions of works in progress, a suite of optional modules in which you're able to choose particular modules that you set alongside your workshops that help you to place your writing and your thinking about writing in a wider literary, critical, and creative context. And then they all have, at the end of the program, a final project, an extended creative work, which takes place through the spring and into the summer, which is an extended piece of creative work of significance, which you work on with a supervisor with whom you have a one-to-one relationship and whom you'll see more frequently than Ian McEwan saw Malcolm Bradbury in the story I was telling earlier. Alongside that program, we have a relatively new program which was launched in 2025. This is MA Creative Writing. It is a deliberately cross-form and flexible program. You can work, and you do work, across prose, poetry, script, and hybrid forms. And this program is very open to genre writing of all kinds. It also has a future focus. It's thinking about platforms. It's thinking about how writing is evolving in the digital age, how writing and collaboration happens across different types of digital platform. It's also very career focused. Now, I'm not saying the other master's programs that we offer are not career focused, but they are explicitly focused on literary achievement and literary possibility. There is a career interest in them too, but here we specifically have a focus on the pathways that can take you into the creative and cultural industries, publishing, digital media, and the GLAM sector, which I think is galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. There's also a placement variant, which is an innovative extended MA, year one, you do the core program. Year two, you have a guaranteed industry placement or project, but we're not quite sure to what extent that fits into the Marshall funding scheme. But if you're interested in that program, perhaps get in touch with Marshall to see if that's something they support. Moving on. As I mentioned earlier, we have over 300 practicing writers on campus at any one time. That means that a lot of activity happens outside the classroom. We have, for instance, our annual MA anthologies. Every student, master's student of creative writing gets entered into the anthologies. As well as being published in the anthologies, students lead the editing and the design and the publication of that program, working with our in-house on-campus publisher, the UEA Publishing Project, within which there sits an imprint called Eggbox, which is a specifically student-focused publishing imprint. So you can get involved in the publication and production of that volume. But in addition, you will also be showcased in that volume with an extract of work that you've been working on during the year. And we also send out the PDFs of that anthology to the agenting and publishing community in London, which really does actually make quite a significant difference to your profile. UEA has a reputation, a genuine reputation that is recognized by literary agents and publishers, and a number of writers have received offers of representation as a result of the MA anthologies, which are sent out into that community. In addition, we have a strong tradition on campus of writers in conversation. We invite writers, fellows, to come to campus and deliver masterclasses or to spend a period of time working on campus. In 2026, this year, we've just had 3 fellows, the poet Ella Frears, the non-fiction writer Zara Chowdhury, and the script writer Janice Oko. In previous years, we've had Margaret Atwood, we've had Ali Smith, we've had Ian Rankin, a huge range of writers who come to campus and share their thoughts on practice. In addition, we have our own literary festival, which is called UEA Live. We have another little brother festival called New Writing Live, which is a student-led series of live literature events that happen on campus throughout the year. I actually set New Writing Live up when I first started working at UEA years and years and years ago, and I love it. It's a really lively evening when writers from across our programs, from undergraduate right up to PhD, of all levels, come together and share their work publicly. There's a great atmosphere. It's really exciting. And then in addition to that, as Birgit mentioned, Norwich is a UNESCO City of Literature. As a consequence of that, literature happens in Norwich a lot. There are events about literature pretty much every night of the week, if that's what you want to pursue. But there are also other organizations that exist to support writing across Norwich in different ways. And our students very often get involved in those organizations. In addition, we have, the vast student community of UEA with societies like Eggbox, which is publishing, LitSoc, which is the Literary Society, Concrete, which is the student newspaper, and the Creative Writing Society, which is, as you can probably guess, the Creative Writing Society. They run a lot of informal workshops, collaborations, and a lot of collaboration and peer group writing happens ambiently because of the community that we exist in. In addition, there are opportunities at UEA to prepare yourself for more professional pathways and experiences. We engage very heavily with the agent and publishing community in London. Every spring, we have a series of agent and publisher visits. We leave them until the spring because we kind of want the bulk of your focus during your time with us to be on your writing on its own terms. And then in sort of May time, we bring the agents and publishers in. And we have 4 or 5 agent and publisher visits, and they come and talk about the industry. They talk about the market as it is now, what's happening, what's exciting, what kind of work they're looking for. It gives a great insight into what's happening in publishing now. It's not just romantasy, according to the agents I met last week, although romantasy is certainly still a hot button area. But it gives a real insight into publishing, creative industries, and also creates connection between you and the literary agents and the publishers. In addition, there are various organizations that offer volunteering opportunities to our students, including the National Centre for Writing, which is a leading international literature development agency that's based in Norwich. The Norfolk and Norwich Festival, which is an arts festival based in Norwich. It's a wonderful sort of spring-based event, and they offer lots of volunteering opportunities. Also at UEA on campus, we have the British Archive of Contemporary Writing, which is a landmark archive of living writers' archives, although not all of the writers are actually alive. Part of that we have this thing called the Unboxed scheme, when students are invited to go in, find things in the archive and write about them on our website as part of the unboxing of the rich treasures of the literary archive that we have. In addition, there are various types of work and professional experience you can get. Student ambassador work, which is paid. We have an annual Young Writers competition for school students in Southeast Asia, and it's possible to be one of the judges of that competition. And then we have the MA Creative Writing placement opportunities that I mentioned earlier. So there are a lot of things that we do outside the programs that provide you with guidance, excuse me, on pathways forward. In fact, that's something that's not on the slide. Every autumn we have a conference on campus called Working with Words, which is a conference about the ways in which you can build a career based on words. And lots of different types of word-based practitioners come back to UEA and talk about the careers that they have embarked on, from TV production to radio production to script work to writers' rooms to journalism to all kinds of things. And that happens on campus every autumn. And it's a really fascinating insight into the way in which degrees like creative writing can forge you a career alongside your writing practice. So to summarize, why UEA? Well, for one thing, it's a pioneering program with global influence. We have a community at any one time of 300 practicing writers and above. We have strength across forms, genres, and media. We have a faculty of leading practitioners who you will work with directly throughout your degree. And we have that proven track record of publication and impact. It really is a degree that opens doors. As I mentioned a minute ago, we had an agent and publisher visit last week. And agent and publishers will say to our students, when you write a letter to an agent seeking representation, always make sure that you put that you studied at UEA in the letter, because if they know that you studied at UEA, they are guaranteed to look at your manuscript. That's straight from the horse's mouth of a literary agent. And all of it takes place in the beautiful medieval city of Norwich, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. As well as going to UEA, I grew up in Norwich, so I have skin in that game. It really is a very special environment, a very special place where writing has happened for a very, very long time, going back into medieval days, and continues to happen both within UEA and outside UEA. So Norwich really is a significant part of the experience of being at UEA. Finally, because in the end, everything has to come back to writing. And if you are thinking about writing and you're thinking about coming to UEA, one of the things that you have to do is convince yourself that you are a writer, for one thing. And a very beautiful book was published this year by a writer called Elizabeth McCracken, who we're hoping to get back to UEA next year as a fellow. It's called The Long Game, and it's about writing novels, but it applies to the long game is the long form of the novel, but it's also the long game, which is the long time it can take to become a writer. And it applies across forms. But she said this wonderful thing that I agree with wholeheartedly, which is to consider yourself a writer as you move about the world is, I am a true believer, a beautiful way to live, a form of open-mindedness, even in terrible times. Here is life. Here life is going on all around. It's a form of writing itself. If you do it, you are a writer. It's likely to lead to putting words down on a page, at least a few, but even if it doesn't, it can make you feel alive. And that in itself, I think, is a reason for pursuing the art of writing in your future education studies. And we'd love that to be at UEA, obviously. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to put a slide up now, which has got various QR codes that will take you to various additional resources. The top is a QR code that will take you to a video about creative writing at UEA, which will put even more flesh on the bones that I've just sketched out. There's a postgraduate course search, which will enable you to find which program you want to go on to or apply for. There's various bits of postgrad info in the third QR code, and then there's a link to a question, ask us kind of function in the other. I would just say before I end that if you are thinking of coming here, do have a close look at each of the programs, because they all have slightly different structures and slightly different approaches. So do take a close look to make sure that you're applying to the one that's best suited to you as a writer. All that said, I shall open things up to questions.
Yeah, if you'd like to, you can pop your questions into the chat. I think that's probably the easiest way to go about it. Yeah, and go from there if we have anything.
Or you can put your hand up and speak if you feel like speaking.
Well, I've been asking this of many of the various institutions, just in regards to if a student's looking to study here and working to work with or collaborate with a specific professor. When's a good time to reach out? Are there times that are maybe not as productive to reach out, or what might that look like?
I mean, it depends what you mean by hang on, this slide's just gone back to the beginning. I was hoping that it would stay on the slide I was on. So I'm just going to go back to that slide.
Okay.
It depends what you mean by work with a particular professor. It depends on the shape of the program that you're operating on. That will, for instance, on the prose fiction MA, which I teach on, every student is in a workshop group in the first semester, and you get assigned a particular workshop leader for that semester. There are 4 or 5 workshop groups, so you get one. You will be in one of those workshop groups, and you will be assigned to one professor for that semester. In the second semester, you will be assigned to another professor.
Okay.
For the prose fiction MA in the summer, if you want to work on a dissertation, you can nominate you can nominate a choice of 3 supervisors who you would work with as your dissertation supervisor. But in general, if you want to reach out to professors at UEA because you're interested in their work, because you want to know more about them, because you want to express your interest in their work, the possibility of working with them in the future, you can reach out at any time. I wouldn't recommend the summer as a great time to do it, because a lot of our writers tend to go off and do their writing during the summer. They still check their emails, but it might be slightly slower response time. And I guess the return period, like the last couple of weeks of September, tend to be a bit fraught. But you can really email at any time. Birgit, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add to that.
No, thanks, Philip. Completely agree. I suppose, yeah, sort of start of semester, end of semester tend to be quite busy times for us, but sort of middle of the semester, I would say maybe November-ish, or let's say March. That's probably a particularly good time to reach out and get in touch.
Great, thank you.
I was going to say too, everyone's online within the creative writing website. They're all listed there. So we get the request sometimes to either to talk to somebody. So just know Birgit and I are on that Ask Us link. So you can link directly to us. You're always welcome to email me. I just have my email up there as like the first point of contact. And then I usually push people out to where they need to go. So Birgit helps quite a bit. I feel like I push a lot of people her way. But yeah, we're happy to facilitate those connections. I realize this is Marshall Monday, but I know for Fulbright, if you're fellowship advisors, a lot of the times they want that letter of support. So the students do oftentimes, or they will probably want to reach out to a professor at the university. So that's always something we can facilitate too. And again, if they want, if they have somebody in mind and need to use me as that liaison, we can do that as well. Because I think I just did that the other day for somebody who was looking to connect with somebody specific in one of the programs.
Are there any other questions about UEA, about the beautiful city of Norwich, about what we do and how we do it?
Doesn't appear to be the case right now, but we do have the QR code there for the Ask Us link. We've got Alana's email on there. If anybody thinks of a question or on reflection, maybe over the next couple of days, by all means, get in touch with the Marshall Secretariat as well. You should have our contact details and we'll pass it on accordingly. But if there's no questions immediately, maybe we will leave it there. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you here at UEA on campus soon.
Thank you all. Yeah, best of luck for your applications if you're currently in the process of applying. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
See you soon. Bye.
See you.
Bye.